and welcome to the Passenger Seat Podcast, a podcast designed to fill your passenger seat with chat about classic cars, all recorded from my 1968 Morris Minor Peggy. I'm Becca, and today I'm going to tell you about what I think was probably my longest day of car events that I've ever been to. So this Saturday I had two events on, one after the other, and they were quite a way away. So I'm going to tell you all about that, what we got up to, what we saw, and kind of how I think it was quite a nice big bang for Peggy to go out on, because that's probably going to be her last two events before she goes to her restoration at the end of this month, fingers crossed. So, I had Rustival booked in, and I also had the Hagerty Hangout for International Women's Day booked in. Luckily, they were only about half an hour away from each other, so it meant that I could go to one and then work my way over to the other. However, they're not particularly close to me. I know that a lot of people travelled way further, but it was quite a trek for us to get there as early as we needed to. So we woke up at 5 a.m, got ourselves all sorted, got Peggy all loaded up with everything that I needed to take along, and then embarked on the drive over. We left at about 6:15 and got there for about 8:15. We had to be there a little bit earlier than they were letting the large majority of people in, because I was there with the Women Drivers Social Club, and I needed to help kind of man their parking area. So making sure that everyone who was supposed to be parked there was, and everyone who wasn't was parked elsewhere. So that was kind of our job for the first part of the morning. It gave me the opportunity to kind of see a lot of cars as they were coming in, and have a quick chat to people as they were arriving. I like to try and make sure that everyone who's new to come into something with the Women Drivers Social Club at least gets a hello and a welcome and a thank you for making the effort to come along, and kind of be part of what we get up to. And we had such a vast array, and also our biggest showing of cars. We had more women at last week's event, because some of them had jumped into the same car together and stuff last week, but we had our biggest collection of cars there this week at Rustival, and we had such a vast array. Rustival was a fantastic event for encouraging you to come in whatever you could come in. So along one side we went from a Morris Minor all the way up to a 2018 Lexus, and kind of had everything in between, a BMW Z3, a Porsche, a Toyota Starlet, an older Lexus, a Mercedes A-Class. So much variety along one side, and then the other side kind of went from a Hillman California all the way across to a Ford Model A, with again a vast array of different cars in the middle of it. I think we really ticked the box of embracing Rustival's bring what you can and enjoy the day mentality. And we had a great bunch of women in attendance too, some new faces, and as well there was some other women who were parked elsewhere who kind of came and said hello, and got involved in some of the stuff that we got up to during the day, which was fantastic. We were the biggest club represented there as well, so it was quite a big task to get us all parked up together, and we're really grateful to the organisers for giving us the space to all spend together and park together, and really represent our group. We're fortunate that obviously two of the organisers are very active members in Carly and Steph, but also Kaz, who has been part of the PRL events team, who were working with the guys to put it all on, another one of our very active members. So once we were all parked up, we had a bit of time to go and see some of the cars. Cars were arranged into two areas. There was the Van den Pla section down closest to the museum, and then we had the Mayfair up on the parking a little bit further ahead up. If you know the British Motor Museum, which is where the event was taking place, then you can kind of visualise the two car parks. They were all within very reasonable walking distance of each other. You were able to kind of get around the large majority of it reasonably easily if you didn't have lots of stuff going on, which is indeed what I had. So I didn't actually manage to see all of the cars. I definitely didn't get to see the whole of the museum, but fortunately this is just visit number 2 of the year to British Motor Museum, and there is plenty more British Motor Museum trips that I've got coming up this year. So I will be sure to have a look around the museum again at a later point. But we had a decent walk round, and then we'd said that we would make use of the fantastic Friendship Corner that was being womaned by Carly, and host a little bit of a women drivers social gathering there, so that all the people that weren't parked with us could find each other and we could get a nice group photo, and really embrace the idea of Friendship Corner in terms of if there was any of our women that had come alone and wanted to find somebody else from the club to walk round with, then they had that opportunity. So at 10:45 we did that, and Carly suggested a brilliant idea of us kind of going around in a circle and introducing ourselves and kind of saying our relationship to the group. And we had a variety of people who had very recently joined, never been to an event, to some people that had remembered the very first International Women's Day meet that we did last year, and been to quite a few things since. So a really great gathering of people, an opportunity to kind of put some faces to some names online. Once we'd wrapped up there and also done some all-important merch sales for the WDSC, we started to have a wander around a few more of the cars, make our way up towards Mayfair, and see some of the cars that were parked up there. This event truly astounded me in the kind of vast array of things that were on display. There was some beautiful cars that were absolutely immaculate, and then there was cars that were truly well loved and used and showing all the scars and kind of adventure marks that you would expect from that. I also enjoyed a lot of the humour that was on display with some of these vehicles. There was a hearse that had kind of got quite a lot of jokey stickers and stuff all over it, as well as kind of a skeleton and stuff on display in the back, and I quite enjoyed that. I know it's not to everyone's taste, but it did make me laugh. And there was just so much to see, and we were stood up there, and as you looked kind of down onto the Van den Pla parking, you could just see the vast array of stuff that was there, and you were walking and you were just kind of moving from one thing to the next, and you could never predict what was coming next. It was absolutely brilliant. There was a Jeep that stood out to me, as it was all done up in Captain America kind of livery, and had a big shield and stuff on the bonnet, and Peggy being named after a Captain America character. That was very exciting to kind of see. And I wish I'd had a chance to kind of get them parked next to each other and get a photo, but perhaps another time. Time passed so quickly, and before I knew it, it was 12:15, and I had to go and do my slot on the stage. Myself, Katie from Wrench and Wench, and Classic Car Claire Brooks, who was there representing the Classic Car Loan Project, were all invited to come up on the stage. The stage was a brilliant addition to the event, and I'm gutted I didn't get to see more of the talks that were going on, but it was such a brilliant experience to be able to go up and all three of us talk about our experiences of being women in automotive, speak about our experiences of our different projects, so Wrench and Wench, Passenger Seat Podcast, and obviously the Classic Car Loan Project, and also give a very good shout out to the Women Drivers Social Club, of which a lot of the members were stood in the audience giving big cheers every time he spoke about it, so that was fantastic. And it was great to be able to be given that platform to talk honestly about our experiences and kind of hopefully open a few eyes to what it can actually be like going to shows and stuff without the kind of very safe space ideals that were definitely being put across at Rustival. But we had a fantastic time in our kind of little half an hour slot, and had a great opportunity to say a few really key ideas about kind of our experiences and how the Women Drivers Social Club has helped to kind of address some of those and start working with a few clubs to try and even the numbers a little bit. Following that, there was another group photo, this time for Friendship Corner, that the Women Drivers Social Club all went over and supported for the press. And we got a group photo of everyone, because I'd forgotten to get one, with our meet a little bit earlier. And then I had to head over to Peggy to give some people some stuff out of the back of it. And whilst with Peggy, I got caught by the photographer from Classic Car Weekly for that, and to talk about the Women Drivers Social Club, and also the Car Chum podcast. And so my sister Jamie and Alex, who were all there, headed on inside to try and get sorted for lunch, while I kind of wrapped up with those things outside. And it was a case of once you were stood with your car, people really started coming up, and so getting away was tricky, but they started bombarding me with calls being like, your sandwiches are ready. And so I headed inside and got a little break with the sandwiches, and had a little walk around the little auto jumble that they had inside, and actually managed to find some Votes for Women pin badges, which was lovely, and some of them came home with me. A brief kind of glance at the museum as we were walking through before we headed back outside to try and catch a few more of the cars. We managed to see a little bit more before it was starting to kind of creep towards the time where people were wrapping up and heading off. There was a lovely awards announcement at the end, and the awards going to such a vast variety of cars. It really showcased what a brilliant and broad and welcoming event the show was. So we stood and watched that, grabbed a last few hellos, goodbyes, and then headed out in convoy with Julia and Elizabeth in their beautiful Porsche to head on to Bicester. Bicester was about 30 minutes down the M40. It was a really nice drive, and I could very easily get used to the sight of an absolutely gorgeous Porsche Targa in my rear view. But once we'd made it to Bicester, we got ourselves parked up and headed into Hagerty's new clubhouse. It's my first time going into the new clubhouse and seeing kind of how that was all set up, so that was interesting. And they had a few kind of things on display on the inside, a couple of stands. Lily Crabtree East had a part of an art project that you were able to take part on, kind of taking inspiration from the experiences of women in the car world and what things that were said to them, which was a really cool thing to see. There was some car-themed treats from Ice Maiden, and the upholsterer from Repair Lot was there doing little projects as well. But the thing that I think everyone was super excited by was the fact that the little car company had got a load of cars there that you could try out. So myself, Katie and Jamie took advantage of this. Myself and Katie ended up in 2 of the little Bugattis, and Jamie in a little DB5, and they really are ever so tiny. There were some people who were finding that they couldn't get in the Bugattis because they were so tiny, and reaching the pedals was never going to be an issue. Katie said, I can't believe that actually it turned out that these almost felt normal to me. And once we were all set up, we started driving around the brilliant site that is Rustival Hagerty, and kind of chasing each other around in these cars. It was a brilliant time. They are so much fun. Are they £40,000 worth of fun? Or perhaps if that feels a little bit more like small change than it does to myself. But a brilliant opportunity, and honestly so much fun. The entrance, I think, to the Hagerty Hangout was £10. I would pay £10 all day for 5 minutes of driving around Rustival Hagerty in one of those brilliant little cars with a group of friends. So perhaps that's something that they should look into offering, because I would definitely take advantage of that. And once we'd done that, we headed inside, met up with a few more people. There was a couple of people who had come over from Rustival and had arrived by that point. So we caught up with some of them and some people that we hadn't seen earlier. And then there was a talk, and the talk was by Charlotte, who had put on the event, and she had got Natalie from Spinal Track there to kind of talk about her experiences of motor sport, having had an accident that left her a tetraplegic, and how that had kind of inspired her work with the charity Spinal Track. It was a really interesting talk, and unfortunately before it moved on to the Q&A section, we did have to kind of head out. I think it was getting to about 6:30, and we still had to eat some dinner and head home, and we'd been out since 6 in the morning, so we said goodbye to a few people, and then headed out to meet my sister, and then went on from there to grab a little bit of dinner and head home. We got home at around 10 o'clock because they'd closed the A14 in the evening, and so we had to take a little bit of a convoluted journey, and we fell into bed. It was absolutely exhausting. I'd done really well at the driving. I thought I was going to struggle a lot more, and I wasn't really tired until I got into my house and I sat down and I was like, oh, I just relaxed, and we made it. But a truly incredibly long day full of incredibly brilliant stuff, and a fantastic experience to have been part of the very first Rustival and the very first Hagerty Hangout at their clubhouse. We had a brilliant day, so many highlights, and while I hope these sorts of things land on separate days, we managed, we coped, and it was definitely a big bang on which Peggy can kind of go out on as her last kind of really public event that she's part of before her restoration takes place at the end of this month. And it's also a big bang in which to end this season of the podcast. We've got to the end of season 6. We've had a fantastic time. The winter seasons are always a little bit more challenging, but we've had some fantastic guests on sharing some of their stories, and we're always looking to kind of add a few more of those to the podcast. The podcast always started out as me sharing my stories like today, but sometimes it's good to hear kind of some other people's experiences and stories as well, and add those to the rich canvas of what the Passenger Seat podcast has become. And what was really lovely about Rustival was being able to meet so many of the people that know me from the podcast, and getting to say hello to a few of them, and then getting to see Peggy as well. There was a few people that said it was great to see Peggy in the metal, and hopefully the next time you see her there will be much more solid metal in some of her places where it started to go a little bit crumbly. But we can't fault her. She did an exceptional job of getting us there and home safely and in one piece, and has done an exceptional job of what is now, I think, 121 episodes of the podcast. So hugely grateful for that from her, and she deserves the little treat that's coming her way, the little bit of pampering that she's going to experience. But if you did come and say hello at any of the events, thank you ever so much. It's always lovely to have a chat, and to be honest, I think with Rustival, that was one of the things that I didn't feel bad about missing so many of the cars, because it felt a lot more about being able to meet so many of the brilliant people behind the cars, that I was so fortunate to do so. So hugely thankful about that. So that was our incredibly long day at both of these events, and I hope you've enjoyed hearing about it. Thank you ever so much for listening. Drive safely and happy motoring.